Sergio Perez won the thrilling and wet Singapore GP, but he almost lost it to penalties given after the race. Today, we're going to dig into the matter and find out what the teams had to say about it, because they weren't happy to say the least. After receiving a reprimand and a one-time penalty from the stewards for violating safety car regulations, Sergio Perez kept his Formula 1 Singapore Grand Prix victory. After falling more than 10 car lengths twice behind the safety car at Marina Bay, Perez's victory was in doubt. Ferrari boss Mattia Binotto said he anticipated a penalty for the Mexican. In contrast, the stewards chose to penalise Perez with a 5-second time penalty and one reprimand in a decision made at 1:42 a.m. local time on Monday. He maintains the victory after finishing 7.5 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Perez violated Sporting Regulations Article 55.1, which states that the leader shall maintain a distance of 10 car lengths or less from the safety car until the lights are turned off. Perez acknowledged dropping more than 10 car lengths behind the Sonoda safety car on lap 36 into turns 13 and 14. At turns 9 and 10, race control gave him the order to maintain its distance, which the team relayed to him. Perez received a 5-second time penalty for this violation, while receiving a reprimand for a violation of a similar nature during a previous safety car period. In addition, he received 2 penalty points, giving him a total of 2 for the year they remain on his driving record. So Checo Perez keeps the win, but not everyone is satisfied with this because Ferrari boss Mattia Binotto feels Sergio Perez should face 2 separate penalties in his stewards probe following the Singapore Grand Prix. Perez defeated pole sitter Charles Leclerc in a timed race, but he was summoned to the stewards for violating a safety car rule. He allegedly fell more than 10 car lengths behind it when it deployed, which is punishable according to precedent. According to Binotto, Perez should receive 2 penalties for making 2 mistakes. He made it not one time, but he made the same mistake twice by dropping back. It is too big a mistake, Binotto told Sky Italy. When I get to history, for example with Antonio Giovinazzi, he just got a penalty for this, so I feel sorry that Perez didn't get the penalty during the race. I don't know why a decision was made immediately. Maybe they didn't want to rush the decision and take their time for the decision. And this is exactly what happened. The stewards needed more time to assess the situation and wanted to hear from the driver before making their decision. And the first time Perez let the gap to the safety car get too big was on lap 10, between coming out of turn 13 and turn 14. The stewards revealed the following about the situation. When questioned during the hearing, PER said that the conditions were very wet and that it was very difficult to closely follow the safety car with little heat in his tyres and brakes. Although the track was wet in parts, we do not accept that the conditions were such as to make it impossible or dangerous for PER to have maintained the required less than 10 car length gap. Nevertheless, the stewards feel that a reprimand is sufficient in this case. Nevertheless, we took into account the wet conditions and the difficulties highlighted by PER as mitigatory circumstances for his incident, and accordingly determined that a reprimand ought to be imposed. That dealt with Perez's first offence, but on lap 36 Perez went wrong again, at the same point, turns 13 and 14 of the Marina Bay Street circuit. Once again, the safety car's gap to the Mexicans' RB18 was too big, and thus stated. This occurred notwithstanding the fact that the race director had issued a warning to the team that PER was not respecting the less than 10 car lengths regulation between turns 9 and 10. The team passed that warning on to PER. The stewards blamed the Singapore Grand Prix winner for not sufficiently narrowing the gap to the safety car despite a warning. We refer to Doc 56, by which we imposed a reprimand on PER for a breach of the same regulation during the first safety car deployment during the race. As this was the second breach of Article 55.1 by PER during the race and followed an express warning from the race director, we determined to impose a 5-second time penalty on PER. And this is why Perez only received a one-time 5-second penalty instead of 2. Ferrari won't be too happy about it, but for Christian Horner, the result was never in doubt. As Red Bull boss Christian Horner stated, he will be absolutely shocked if the Singapore Grand Prix victory of Sergio Perez is overturned by Formula 1 officials. Perez won the timed event at the Marina Bay, even though he was under investigation for slipping more than 10 car lengths behind the safety car. The Mexican eventually beat Ferrari's Charles Leclerc by 7.5 seconds, but Ferrari believes Perez committed the same offence twice, which would result in a total time loss of 10 seconds. Red Bull boss Horner, however, has consistently held that his driver is in the right. They're going to have a look at it, but for me, there's so many precedents, Horner told the media. We see it time and time again on formation laps. Behind the safety car, what some of the cars are doing. There's even precedents with Sebastian Vettel. I'd be absolutely shocked if that victory were to be taken away from him. Perez scored his 4th career win, and Horner also hailed it as the best of his Formula 1 career. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is his best drive, he explained. In tricky conditions, he converted the start. In difficult conditions on the inters, and it took forever to dry. Safety cars, virtual safety cars to deal with, he didn't put a foot wrong. He was outstanding today. He kept his composure under massive pressure from Charles at the restart, and in the end, he broke Charles to get that DRS gap and was able to pull out over 7 seconds. And it indeed was an impressive drive from the Mexican, one he will remember for the rest of his life. As he battled past Charles Leclerc to claim his 2nd victory of 2022, Sergio Perez described the final few laps of the Singapore Grand Prix as intense. After the final Yuki Tsunoda-initiated safety car period, the Ferrari driver was able to cut the deficit. But despite reaching him in the closing laps, he found it difficult to pass. Due to the weather, it took a while before DRS could be used, but Perez managed the gap in what he calls his best performance in Formula 1. Certainly, I think my best performance, I controlled the race, he told media. Although the tyre warm-up was pretty difficult, the last few laps was so intense. I really didn't feel it that much in the car, but when I got out, I felt it. I gave everything for the win today. So that's that for Perez, his 2nd win of the season and his 4th of his career. It was a spectacle to watch, but not everyone is so happy about the dealings of the FIA as the start was delayed for over an hour. And once again, the FIA in the middle of yet another debate. At the Singapore Grand Prix, the FIA once again demonstrated that they're still not organised. Although the rain had stopped earlier, the race was delayed by an hour due to a severe downpour on the circuit. Race control made judgments too slowly even during the actual race. After the race in Singapore, the FIA received a lot of criticism from both Formula 1 experts and fans. Once more, race control failed to take swift enough action. It appears that the FIA has yet to apply the lessons learned from the Belgian Grand Prix in 2021. There was also a strong downpour in Singapore, which delayed the race's start by an hour. Even though it stopped raining earlier, the FIA decided to delay the race's start to an hour later. At Spa, it was a mistake to delay the start of the race after the rain stopped, preventing fans from seeing their favourite drivers in action. The FIA may consider themselves fortunate that additional downpours did not occur at the Marina Bay racetrack, as this would have required an even longer start delay. The full wets were once again not deployed because race organisers waited so long that the course had sufficiently dried. The FIA almost seems to be terrified of rain events these days. Additionally, the FIA acted slowly throughout the race by delaying the DRS's activation for a very long time, as drivers switched to slick tyres halfway through. Over the team radio, several drivers questioned why the DRS hadn't been turned on yet. Drivers need DRS to chase their opponents, particularly on a circuit like Singapore, where overtaking is already challenging. To make a long story short, the FIA also decided to postpone the investigation into Sergio Perez until after the race. In contrast to other classes of racing, like IndyCar, where officials can make decisions about infractions instantly, in Formula 1, the true race winner is not revealed to spectators until hours after the event. The Singapore Grand Prix serves as a reminder that the FIA still has to undergo significant restructuring. What do you think of the statement? The FIA does not have its affairs in order after the Singapore Grand Prix. Let us know in the comments down below. That's all for today. As always, thanks for watching and make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.